Behind the closed doors of diplomacy in Brussels, the mask finally slipped. At a confidential meeting, China's foreign minister made a statement that stunned European officials. And surprisingly, it wasn't about Taiwan, military secrets, or territorial disputes. It was something far deeper. China revealed its biggest fear, that if Russia loses the war in Ukraine, the United States will redirect its full power toward China. This moment of honesty, confirmed by multiple diplomatic sources, sent ripples from Europe all the way to Asia. For years, Beijing carefully played the role of a neutral observer in the Ukraine conflict. But this time, the mask came off. And the world saw what China truly fears, not out of love for Moscow, but out of concern for its own survival. During the 4-hour meeting in Brussels, Foreign Minister Wang Yi reportedly spoke with rare candor. He admitted that Russia's defeat would leave China dangerously exposed, facing America's undivided attention across the Pacific. According to reports from the South China Morning Post and European diplomats, this wasn't a rehearsed talking point. It was an unguarded confession of strategic anxiety. Because for Beijing, the war in Ukraine is more than a distant geopolitical crisis. It's a shield. As long as Russia holds the line, Washington must split its focus and resources between Europe and Asia. But if Moscow falters, America can turn its full economic and military might eastward. And that's China's nightmare scenario. European officials quickly noticed the contradiction. Publicly, China insists it's neutral, denying it provides Russia with weapons or funding. Privately, its diplomats now admit the war's outcome is critical to China's security.
One diplomat even said, if China truly wanted peace, it could make it happen.
But instead, Beijing appears to be betting on a prolonged war, one that keeps the U.S. and its allies distracted on multiple fronts. Yet behind this global chess game lies another reality: China's domestic crisis. While the government plays power politics abroad, the economy at home is showing cracks. Deflation, a real estate collapse, and an industrial machine producing far more than the world can buy. Prices have now fallen for the 4th straight month, signaling deflation. And deflation isn't just cheaper goods, it's a trap. When people expect prices to fall further, they stop spending. Businesses earn less, cut jobs, and reduce investment. A vicious cycle begins. The main culprit? Overproduction. Chinese factories are running at full capacity, churning out goods faster than the market can absorb. And this isn't just steel or cement anymore. Even in high-tech industries like solar energy, China is overshooting demand. By 2025, China's solar panel capacity will exceed 1,200 gigawatts, nearly double what the rest of the world plans to install. The result? Prices collapse, profits disappear, and survival depends solely on volume. State subsidies and cheap loans keep unprofitable factories alive, turning them into zombies. In short, China is trying to fight a fire with more fire. The paradox runs deep. Beijing promises to reduce overproduction, yet continues to fuel it through massive support programs. Steel, electric vehicles, solar panels, all drowning in surplus, yet still heavily subsidized. Local governments rely on these sectors for jobs and taxes. State banks rely on them to justify loans. So the cycle continues. In 2023 alone, China exported $24 billion worth of solar panels, yet prices fell by 40%. Factories operated on razor-thin margins just to stay open. The same pattern is hitting the auto industry. China built nearly 8 million electric vehicles, but only 2/3 were sold domestically. The rest flooded foreign markets, especially Europe and Southeast Asia, at dumping prices. This strategy keeps factories busy, but it's turning into a diplomatic disaster. The European Union has launched investigations into Chinese EV subsidies. The U.S. is preparing new tariffs on clean energy imports. Even friendly countries are complaining. Cheap Chinese exports are crushing their own industries. Beijing now faces a painful dilemma: cut subsidies and risk mass factory bankruptcies, or keep them and watch global markets close one by one. And then there's real estate, the former pillar of China's economy. For decades, property was the ultimate symbol of Chinese prosperity. Apartments were not just homes, they were the main form of savings. Local governments thrived on land sales. Developers borrowed endlessly, fueling a construction boom that built entire ghost cities. Now, that boom has turned into a bust. In 2025 alone, developers must repay over $500 billion in debt. Once powerful giants like Sunac, Logan Group, and Country Garden have defaulted or restructured, many creditors losing up to 70% of their money. In some cases, investors didn't even receive cash. Instead, they were compensated with unfinished buildings, hotel rooms, or empty shopping centers, assets worth far less than promised. Even worse, local courts now routinely oversee bankruptcies that were once unthinkable. Defaults are no longer the exception. They've become the new normal. But the real crisis isn't financial, it's psychological. Confidence in China's system is eroding. Banks, local governments, and developers are so entangled that risk in one sector spreads everywhere. People no longer trust that their savings, their property, or their investments are safe. What was once China's biggest source of wealth has become a black hole, dragging the entire economy down. And time is running out. Payment deadlines are approaching. Resources are thinning. China is heading toward a reckoning that can no longer be postponed. Each crisis now triggers the next. The war in Ukraine keeps the U.S. distracted, but only temporarily. Deflation weakens domestic demand. Overproduction floods markets abroad. Falling exports and foreign mistrust squeeze the system tighter each month. Meanwhile, former President Trump threatens new tariffs, and BRICS members push harder to reduce their dependence on the dollar. That's reshaping trade routes and shrinking demand for Chinese goods. Today, China stands at a crossroads. The old growth model, cheap credit, endless construction, and state-driven exports, is collapsing under its own contradictions. Reforms could bring stability, but at the cost of rising unemployment and potential social unrest. And that's what Beijing fears most. Yet refusing to act could be even worse, a full-scale collapse that no stimulus package or slogan can prevent. The cracks are no longer hidden. They run through the very foundation of the system. And now the world is watching to see whether China can weather the storm, or whether the storm will finally consume it. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this story isn't over yet.